Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Ksuvos Daf Nun Tes. We are going to begin on the bottom of Nun Chesim Beis by the two dots. Hamosa Rameir Omer Hektish. So we learned in the Mishnah on the top of Nun Chesim Beis the din of a person who wishes to be makdish his wife's Masya Deha, whether he has the right to do that. So we say he can't. In fact, if he does, she could just eat it because it's not within his rights to do so, and this could potentially, in the case of Indonesia, where he does not give mazonos because she keeps her own masya deha, and therefore he has no rights to them. Or alternatively, because it's a davar shelo ba'olam. You can't be mocked to something that is not here. And then the Mishnah said that actually it's a machlokas Rameir and Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, whether or not, when it comes to the extra, not just her masya deha, but the monies that she makes above and beyond those specific expectations of her masya deha. So the din is, according to Rameir, that if you would be makdish the moser, it would work, and it would be hektish. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says no, it's a davar shelo ba'olam, it doesn't work. Again, Rameir, as we mentioned, holds you could be makdish a davar shelo ba'olam. So on this, the Gemara asks, Amos kadosh. When exactly did this item become potentially sanctified? So on this, the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel Dimer Tavayu, Meiser Achamisa. When we're talking about the extra work that she did, that extra money, that was Achamisa, says Rashi, Kishatomos he v'yirashena, that she died and he inherited her. However, in that situation, Kadosh. In that situation, he's able to be makdish it because it's here and because it's his. We're talking about as soon as she made it, even though he wasn't yarish it, nonetheless the din is that he could still be makdish it. So Habi Rav Papa. So on this, Rav Papa pondered, so let's say that this man did everything right. He gave her mazonos, umalu ma kesef, and he also provided for her this silver coin. He gave her money, so l'saracheha for her needs. So my time demandem la'achamisa kadosh. So why would we say that it's la'achamisa that when she dies, then it's considered to be kadosh? It sounds like, again, he's providing everything, which means that he should have the rights to all these things. The elo b'shein malo mazonos. So we're saying, no, he gave her no mazonos, v'lo malo ma kesef, l'saracheha, and he gave her nothing. So my time demand the armor machayim kadosh. L'chara, it shouldn't be kadosh l'chayim either because it's not his. He's not entitled to any of it. So oilam b'malo mazonos. The truth is, he did give her mazonos. The ein malwa ma kesef, but didn't give the silver coin l'saracheha for her needs. So he did one thing, but not the other. So Rabbi Shmuel Savri. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, they hold that tiknos, we continue to Nun Testament Aleph. The mazonos is tachas masya deha. Since she receives mazonos, so that's why he will receive her masya deha for the work that she does. However, ma kesef tachas moiser, and the ma kesef that he gives is in lieu of the moiser, the extra work that she gives, the extra money. The kivan delo ko yavlo ma kesef. So we're talking a case where mazonos, as we're establishing what we're talking about, that he only gave mazonos. Well, now, if he only gave mazonos, so therefore that means he's entitled to the her masya deha. But since he didn't give the ma kesef, so therefore he should not be entitled to the moiser. Kivan deloy koyayva ma kesef moiser didahavi. Therefore it belongs to her, and therefore machayim, he has no ability to be makdish it. Rav Adabar Alva Savar no tiknu mazonos tachas moiser. That when it came to the mazonos, that was tachas moiser. It's a ma kesef is tachas masya deha. So he actually holds that the masya deha, her regular paycheck, is totally on this ma kesef that he gives. The kivan de kol yavlo mazaini, And since he gave her mizonos, moise didei havi. Therefore, since he gave her mizonos, so therefore he's entitled to her extras, and it should go to him. And therefore, because of that, he has a right. He has a right to it at this point. And that's why Rav Adabarava says that Meiser Mechayim Kadosh, even while they're alive, he has a right to be makdish it, because since he gave the mizonos to her, so he's entitled to her Meiser. So b'maykim efagi. What's this malchokas if the mizonos is linked to the masyadeha, or the mizonos is linked to the Meiser? So Mar Saber midishchech midishchiach. It makes sense to link two things that are common. Mizonos, you always need food, and masyadeha, her work is also shchiach. However, when it comes to the Meiser, not necessarily is every woman going to be able to work overtime. Umar Saber mididikayetz mididikayetz. The other svar is no. Ma kesef is a specific amount of money, and the masyadeha is a specific amount of money. Mizonos is an unlimited supply. There's no specific amount, and therefore it's better to link the makesef to the mizonos. To the makesef, fine. So the mizonos, again, either you want to say that the mizonos should be linked to the masyadeha, because the mizonos and masyadeha are shchiach, or you want to say that no, you want to link the makesef to the masyadeha, because the makesef is a set amount and her masyadeha is a set amount. Okay, fine. So that is the svara of the machlokas. We know that that's not the case. We've learned this before, that the mizonos is linked to the masyadeha. The mizonos is not linked to the meiser. Se'ema tachas meiser. Achas tachas meiser masyadeha. So it's actually connected to the meiser. Tashma. Im eino nois lo mo kesef. If he doesn't give the mo kesef l'sarcha for her needs, masyadeha shalah. So we see beferish that if he doesn't give to her the ma kesef, so we see that she keeps the masyadeha. So we see that the ma kesef, like the svar adabarava, is linked to masyadeha. So where it says ema meiser masyadeha shalah, that the meiser will be hers, because he holds that the ma kesef, which is Rav and Shmuel, is linked to the meiser. Vaha alokatani. But we learned regarding what are her earnings that he here keeps for herself. We're going to see clearly the masyadeha, not the meiser. Mahi oise lo mishkol chamish sloim shasi b'Yehuda, which is referring to a warp in Yehuda. So again, it's clear that what does she keep for herself? The masyadeha. It's not referring to the meiser. So l'chayra, it's a question. So hachikamer masyadeha kamihavi. How much is masyadeha in a situation? Delay the meiser dida to know her extras. Kama mishkol chamish sloim shasi b'Yehuda shehin eser sloim b'Galil. Okay. So again, it's not necessarily a raya either way. Omer Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yochanan Sadler. Now, as we mentioned in our Mishnah, when it comes to the din of meiser, the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan Sadler. If you're makdish the extras, he says chulin, because you cannot be makdish a davar shul b'oilum. Mi Omer Shmuel hachi, but does Shmuel really say that's the din? But we learned in the Mishnah, if a woman says koinim shani oisel aficha, so she basically says, I don't want to have any hana. So eino sarchel hafer. So according to this opinion, it's not necessary to even annul this vow. This neder has no koyach. Says Rashi, neder zeh she'ein bo koyach lakdisho lafishu shelo. It's his. So she has no right to say that basically I'm not going to allow you to get any hana. Says Rashi, mashini oisa. My masyadeha yikoinim leficha. Hialecha kehektish mlihanaslo. I don't want my husband to get any connection to, or any hana to my masyadeha. So you can't do that. It doesn't mean anything, because he's entitled to her. Rabbi Kiva Omer Yafer. The man should still be made for such a neder. Shema tadif alav yeser min haroilo. Because what if there's more? And even though it's true, says Rashi, there's no Rashi. So Yoisim Ramasha Paskal Chachamim Mishkal Chamish Slaim Demoises Enu Shaloi. That's not his. Because she has the right to be makdish her moiser, so her extras. So therefore, you should make a hafar on that. Rabbi Yochanan Nuri Omer, and this is why I bring this down. Yafer. Also, he says you should be annul this vow of this woman. And Rashi says, Af ikra masyadeha sar chafar. Even the masyadeha. Why? Shemi gershena, because maybe you'll get divorced. Says Rashi, v'hei neder chal shemish garsha. From the time that you get divorced, it's going to be chal. Einu mishubedes lo masyadeha, because once you're divorced, you no longer have any connection to her masyadeha. So therefore, that's the reason why you should be made for it now. And he says the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri. So the question is, according to Rabbi Yochanan Nuri in our Mishnah, you can't be that makdash davar shel ba'olam. But over here, he's saying that you should be made for it because in the future, this future money, when you get divorced, you're not going to have any connection to it. So the question is, how could he make that statement? L'chayra, it doesn't fly to what we just saw in the Mishnah. So ki amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yochanan Nuri lahadafa. Really, he's only talking about the extras. That for the extra, that she's entitled to, and that's the reason why. So why don't we say the halacha is like him specifically with hadafa? Inam ein halacha katana kama. Inam halacha Rabbi Kiva. Now, Rabbi Yosef konamois ka'amrit. You're trying to bring a question regarding konamos, these promises to be makdish something, whether something's heknish or not heknish. Shani konamois mitar adam oiser peres chavera olav. Since a person can aser his friend's peros on himself, adam makdish davar shel ba'olam. When it comes to konamois, you actually could be makdish davar shel ba'olam. Says Rashi, mitashu taifas b'makom shein stam heknish. Even though in certain average normal circumstances it wouldn't work, here when it comes to kanamos it works. Says Rashi, she'adam oiser peros chavero love. A person can ask his friend's fruits on him. Yomer koinim peros ploini olai ustam hektish ein adam makdish davar she'enu shelo. Normally you can't makdish something that's not yours. So how could you do so when it comes to kanamos? We still say it works. Hilkach adam oiser love nami davar shelo ba'olam. So that's the reason why when it comes to konamois, fine, we see over here that maybe you should actually be mefer the thing itself. Because of divorce, it hasn't happened yet. Doesn't matter. When it comes to konamois, you could be makdish davar shel ba'olam. Over Masnisen says Rashi, but makdish hektish gomer ari v'ena memaher litvais k'koinim. So it's not considered to have the same dim as konamois, and therefore, because of that, a person cannot be makdish a davar which is shelo ba'olam. Okay. Fine. One second. I can understand why you can ask for someone else's fruits, even though they're not yours. Because you have the ability to answer your fruits on the other person. If they were your fruits, you could answer someone else. So therefore, someone else's fruits, you can answer on yourself. So yes, or davar shel ba'olam al chavero, shechein ein adam oiser peros chavero al chavero. So even by kainim, you can't make your friend's fruits usher on your friend, like a woman making a kainim that the masyadeha, which is her husband's. How could she make this forbidden on her husband? It shouldn't work at all. Elo omer Rav Huna Rav Yeshua ba'omeres yikadshu yadai loiseihem. Yadayim is to ba'olam. This we said before. The reason why over here it works is because she was not being makdish her masyadeha, which her future masyadeha, but rather her hands. and the handiwork that she creates with her hands. And that is a davar shabol olam, and that's why it works. So if you say this, mim kansha, hamshabdele, but how could she be makdashit? She's meshubid with her hands, says Rashi. Klaimer tiratzta lo bol oilam the malacha lo bol olam the gershin lo tiratzta dil hashta leislo reshusa lakdushe vehechi kaddish kamei. The Amra, so she says lachim garsha. It's talking about when I get divorced. So right now it doesn't work. However, because it's meshubid to him, because the Masideh go to him, therefore her hands are like his in a certain respect. So how could it be that it doesn't work now, but Kamei Kaddish, but in the future you could say it for now, for based on the future? So Rabbi Eloi, why not? The field that I sold to you, when I purchase it from you to Kaddish, it'll work. So therefore, if you make this stipulation, it'll work there. It should work here too. Over there, it's in your hands to be matish. She doesn't have the ability to divorce herself. It's something which the man does, not her. So therefore, it's not biyada. It's not comparable. The field that I'm selling to you, so in that situation, when I purchase it from you to sanctify it, delo kaddish, in that situation it will not work because it's not necessarily in your hands to be able to purchase it if it's not for sale. So again, the question is, so how come over here she's able to make this stipulation? So midami hasam gufu paris biyada. Over when there, the land and the fruits are in the lokech's hands. Hacha gufa biyadahu. However, over here, the gufa biyada says Rashi b'har yikachu yadayamra. She's talking about her hands, and therefore perhaps that in fact would work. Hacha gufa biyadahu. Aholodamya. That's not comparable. A person says to his friend, as we continue in New Testament Bays, Sada zu, this field shemishachti lecha, that is a mashkain to you, likashef dena, when I redeem my field mimcha from you, to kaddish to kadsha. So her hands are like a mashkon. So we now have a good resolution. Maskevol Rab Shesha Berei Rab Idi, Midami Hasam biyadol efdaisa. Over there, it's in his hands to redeem the field. But again, she doesn't have the right to divorce herself. Again, this field which I'm giving to you as a collateral, Eser Shun for 10 years, when I redeem it, Mimcha Tikadish Tikadsha. So Maskav Ravashi, what are you talking about? Midami, again, Hasam Eser Shun Mia Biyadol of Daisa. Even though it's not Biyadoi now, but in 10 years it will be in your hands to redeem it. She never has the ability to divorce herself. Again, they're going back to konamois. Shani konamois the kedusha sagufninhu. Now, when it comes to konamois, it has the status of kedusha saguf. Says Rashi, kedusha mizbeach. It has the same sanctity as kedusha mizbeach. Shein lehen pidyon, that there's no form of redemption. Kach ein pidyon lekainim. Also, there's no din of kinyan. There's no pidyon when it comes to kainim. Skipping a couple lines of Rashi. So therefore, her husband's rights are removed. She mishubedes labal avachayil. Her husband's rights are removed. Fine. And how do we see this? Even though there's normally a shibud on karka, but if you're a makdish, it says Rashi, kagoyin sheshibud shoyra lebal chayiv. They're mishabed an ox to the bal chayiv that you're going to pay, let's say, with this. B'chaz of ekdisha, then you're a makdish the ox. Mafkiya shibud hamalve v'goy v'chayivim b'makam acher. So it says that it doesn't matter. That ox is now no longer under this person's jurisdiction. So this is how it works when it comes to hektish, that you could actually be makdish something like in this situation because it has Kedushas Aguf. And therefore, so too, she had the ability to be makdish this item. What else? Chametz, says Rashi, Asa Chemtso Aputiki Lo'ovid Kachavim. So you had this Ovid Kachavim that you owed money to, and you made the chametz that you have as an oputiki, they can definitely pay from it. V'giha Pesach, and all as Pesach came, Isser Chametz Mafkiyaso Mishibud. Ha'ovid Kachavim V'neser Bahana. So we say that you can no longer use this chametz, it's also Bahana. Fine. And Rashi says, according to the Gemara Pesachim, Ovid Kachavim Shehilvi L'Yisrael. Al chametzo achar Pesach Moter Bahana. Ukminu Lahasim Kisherninu Etzlei. It's when it was given over to him, Shemas biyado mashkain, that it was in the mashkan was in the akum's hands and home. V'shichor asa avdo patiki, if you made a slave into this apotiki for a loan, the shichor, and you freed him, so mishochor, he's free. And you collect from another place. So when it comes to, again, these things, hektish, chametz, and shechor, it's mafkim b'di shibud. V'nikdeshu mahashta. So if you would makdish it from now, al mu rabbanan l'shibude dabal. They strengthen the shibud of the husband, kihechid lo tikadish mahashta. They don't have the ability to actually do this now, but it'll only work later on. Okay, let's look at a couple of questions before this Mishnah. Question 8. Matiknu chachamim shenaisan abal isha tachas moiser masyadeha. So if she gives the moiser masyadeha, the moiser, what should the husband be entitled to once he gets the moiser? So this is question 8. So according to one man de'omer, it makes sense that it should be mizonos. Lachan man de'omer ma kesef. So in the event that again she gives the meiser, he gives the ma kesef, or he gives her mizonos. So that's actually a machlokas. Fine. Let's see. TA 13. Shibud sharul bal chayvek dishoy. Okay, this is just a simple question, a sidebar question. If you were Misha, and this is New Testament base, we just saw this. A person was Mishabed his ox to a Bal Chayv, he owed money, then you were Makdish the ox, Him ha-hektish mafkia medi shibud. So the question is, does this actually work when it comes to an ox? And the answer is yes. Let's see if there's more to this. Kedushas aguf. If we're dealing with an animal which is Kedushas aguf, mafkia. Kedushas damim lebedek habayis enu mafkia. So that's a good point. That it's only when we're talking about Kedushas aguf, which is like Kedushas mizbeach, then we say the din is that it's mafkia, and therefore you have to collect somewhere else. And therefore that's what we're saying. Konamois has the same status as Kedushas aguf, and therefore because of that, it works as far as being makdish. TB 14. Okay. Weiter. Let's see the next Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, "Ve'elu malachos." These are the responsibilities she'isha oisel ba'ala, that a woman should do for her husband. Toichenes, she grinds the food, grain. Ba'oife, she bakes bread. Umechabeses, she does the laundry. Bevasheles, she bakes. Umenika, the Gemara is going to ask, says Rashi, Amaylo iftara makuhu b'chad shivcha shachnisa b'imkayma. Just have like one maid do all the stuff. Umenika es bena, and nurse the child. Matzasas ulomita, and make a bed. Va'oisat b'tsemer, and making wool. Hechnisa lo shivcha achas. Let's say you have one shivcha that's brought into the marriage. Loy toichenes, so in that case she no longer has to grind the grain, lo'oifa, or bake. V'loy mechabeses, she doesn't have to do the laundry, but she should do everything else. Shtayim, if there's two workers, ein mevasheles, she doesn't have to bake anymore. Then Manikas Bana, she doesn't have to nurse anymore. She can have a wet nurse. Shalosh, if she brings in 3, Imasalo Amita, she doesn't have to make the bed. Vein Oisa but Semer, and she doesn't have to make the wool. Arba, if she has 4 Shvachais, then Yoshevis be Katedra. She can sit on her throne, and says Rashi, Titrach b'shvila leilech v'shlichus l'havlo chayfetz mebayas l'aliyah. She doesn't have to do anything. So, because she has a bunch of workers. So in Rabbi Lezer Omer, afilach nisa lo meish v'chais. Even if there's 100, koifel asais b'tsemer, we at least require to make the wool. Shehabatol mevidili zima. Because if a person sits around and does nothing, it leads to zima, to lewdness. If a woman makes a neder and says, I'm not going to work, so yotze eating suba. It's a good enough reason that you can divorce her, and but you should still give her ksuba. Why would this be good grounds for divorce? Shabbatala mevili di shiumum. Says Rashi, shigoyoin, like craziness. A person doesn't do anything and has no worth. That's not a good thing, and that's not a good thing for a marriage. She actually has to take wine, to go to the water mill and start grinding it all up. Ela ema matchenes. Says Rashi, machina tzarchet china. So she just has to prepare it, but she doesn't have to do all the nitty gritty. Maybe it's talking like a hand mill, and that is something that she's capable of doing. The whole purpose of a woman is for her beauty, in isha el banim, to be able to have children. The Tani Rav Chia in isha el tachshiti isha. It's Rashi says sheyiknu la tachshitin leis anos behen, to give her garments and beautiful jewelry, so she should look beautiful. According to his opinion, a woman doesn't have to do any work. But Tani Rav Chia Haroit says shiyadin as ishtay. If a person wants to make his wife look beautiful, yalbishena klei pishton, then she should have her wearing these special garments made out of pishton, like a flax. Haroit says shiyalbin as bitoy. If he wants to make his children's position more shiny, a little means white, yachilena efroichim, you should eat birds, v'yashkena chalav samach lepirka, and you should drink milk near their pirka. Rashi says yemei hanuroim, during their youth. Umenikas bena. So when it comes to your child, she should be nursing her child. If she makes a neder, I'm not going to nurse my child, literally, we will remove the breast from her mouth. So Rashi says she should not nurse. Shechal haneder, it actually works. Alma lo mishabdale. It sounds that she has no obligation to have to do it. The opposite. She's obligated to nurse the baby, and therefore will force her to do so. Nisgarsha, let's say they're divorced, ain't a koif, we're not going to force. V'im hayimakira noisin la sachara b'koifa u'minikasai v'neasakana. If, let's say, the baby recognizes this woman and does not want to nurse by anyone else because it's dangerous, so we could pay her to do it. Afilotem b'beishami hachama maskina and kigan shenadrahi v'kiyim law who. So perhaps, even though Beishami says that the notion of being manikas b'na, it sounds like it's not really her obligation, but maybe in fact he could fit into our Mishnah, which it says it is her obligation, because we're talking about where she made a neder not to nurse, v'kiyim lahu, and he verified it, and he said it was okay, and therefore once that happens, so l'chara, she doesn't have to do it. She has to, the neder is upheld by her husband. The fact that he was the one who verified her words, so it's like he put a finger in his own eye, or a little between his teeth. And the notion is that it was his fault. Beis Hill Savri, he nasna etzba ben shineha. Since she's the one that initiated this notion of making this neder that she's not going to nurse anyone, so that's really her problem, and therefore we're going to say no, we're going to force you to. V'nifagu b'ksuba ba'alma. Says Rashi, neder milahana islo v'kayim lo b'shami amrim teitzi v'tito ksuba islo amrim teitzi below ksuba. So they argue whether or not she actually receive her ksuba. But oh, Tanya b'shami amrim ein manika. It says that ein manika. So that in itself, so Rashi says, gotta be kol nasha feel below neder. It's mashma. It sounds like she never has to do so if she doesn't want to. Really, it must be. In fact, our Mishnah is not like the Shita of Beis Shammai. Question. We're going to stop there. Question 10. Kama shvachos hichnis lo utehe patura mishivas hamalachos. There's 7 things that a woman's supposed to do, but if she brings in a certain amount of shvachos, it's not necessary. How many? Ve'ez malacha min hashiva enu nifteres men u'oyam alibed Rabbi Lezer. There's one job that Rabbi Lezer says it doesn't make any difference. She still has to do that. So that it says that she's still obligated, even 100. However, when it comes, once there's 3 maidservants already, she basically doesn't have to do much else. Question T. Adkan.